got a lot on my mind lately, and I'm already not gonna get any sleep tonight, so I figured, hey, why not? But anyway, how's your family been? Good? Hopefully better than mine. My mom just, kicked me out of the house today. Yep. I'm sure I'll be fine. I'm staying with a friend, but, yeah, this week has been just, a little bit chaotic. Still haven't found a job yet. I don't know how many more places there are left to apply to. I guess I should just be used to that by now, right? I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't been feeling too great lately. But it's not like anybody around me has noticed, have they? My family doesn't care. Those teachers who said they'd help me back in primary school with my issues don't care. All the therapists in the world couldn't care less. Sometimes I feel like you're the only person who actually cares. And you're halfway across the goddamn country. Of all the times I've been screwed over by all this... I'm sorry. It's been kind of rough. I don't know how I can get away from it. I feel like ever since I've graduated, I've just been worse and worse. I can barely get out of bed. I can't look at myself in the mirror, and I just hate leaving the house because every time, without fail, something else goes wrong, and it's getting so hard to deal with it all. What's the point of even trying, anyway? There's no greener pastures. From the moment you can spell your own name, you're shipped off to boot camp and beaten into submission until they dump you out in the real world to forget your aspirations and work for some shill, wasting your days away until they throw you out when you're up to the end of your life. And then what? There's no time to travel or do anything meaningful. You're just about on the edge of death anyway. You can't go out and enjoy your youth and fall in love for the first time. Before you know it, you've wasted your entire life doing things for somebody else's sake. Maybe a failed marriage or some estranged kids here and there, too, just to add insult to the injury. What kind of life is that? I just wish there was some way to get away from it all. I wish there was some way that I could just live. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to, I don't know, be a YouTuber? No, I'm being serious. Imagine that freedom. Being able to make a living off of doing what you actually want. The talents that people just don't see you have. Imagine people understanding you. I must sound really drunk right now, don't I? Sorry. I'm just, I think I'm gonna go lay in bed for a while or something. Have a nice life.
Yes, I am well aware that we are currently more than halfway through December. And yes, I am also well aware that by the time I upload this, it may be past Christmas. Frankly, I don't care. And I refuse to miss making a Halloween-themed video for anything or anyone. I hope you guys enjoy the video. The YouTube we know today is completely different from the YouTube of years past, even only as far back as 2016. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that 2016 was one of the most unique years in YouTube history. 2016 itself occupies this strange spot in internet culture where, as influenced by the chaotic reality of the world at large, new movements and definitive narratives came into fruition. The concepts of political and social identity gained a strong new importance, and, overall, the denizens of the web all seemed to be experiencing a bizarre form of collective metamorphosis. In a way, it almost feels like YouTube was bracing itself for the incoming Vine invasion and eventual adpocalypse of the following year. Now, this, of course, is quite unlikely, but that would certainly explain why the atmosphere concerning 2016 was so unique and unusual, contrasted with that of following years. Whatever you personally choose to believe was the cause, 2016 was undeniably one of a kind. Many of the figures who ascended to stardom on YouTube that year rose and fell within the span of months, entire careers being born and then suddenly dying before anyone had the chance to process why. Fellows like Leafy is Here and Grade A come to mind. The boundaries of internet entertainment were regularly pushed, but in a different way than they always had been. It's hard to describe, but the best I can do would be to characterize it as a clash between different worlds or ideologies. While all of these concepts are interesting in their own right, I think that perhaps most importantly, in a lot of ways, 2016 was an essential year for the identity of the individual content creator. If you're new to YouTube, or simply don't watch that much on the website at all, this phrase may not be all too meaningful to you. For the majority of its life, YouTube has served as a sort of haven for the individual content creator. Talented, charismatic, or simply ambitious people could, by virtue of their humor, artistic ability, or any range of additional factors, become massively successful internet personalities. An individual content creator was somebody who reflected these ideals, a minor celebrity of sorts who was free of the oppressive shackles surrounding mainstream entertainment. They were self-made, self-managing, and thoroughly, utterly human. However, as YouTube came into the possession of Google and gradually shed its grassroots reputation, a new type of personality rose to prominence. Companies looking to capitalize on the potential of an online media market soon spread across the site. Critics of YouTube's decision to embrace this immigration infer that the site aspires to serve as a pale imitation for cable TV, rather than a unique and personalized platform of its own. Personally, I believe that the adpocalypse accelerated this push for a more corporate YouTube. The site's desperation to maintain advertiser revenue led them to fall back on much more regulated and inoffensive content. YouTube's algorithm changed to promote the content which would appease advertisers, and, with the Vine invasion leaving to its name a whole array of relatively attractive young adults, primed and ready to be milked by brands, thus began YouTube's self-imposed vlogger era. The individual creator which had once thrived in early YouTube was no longer the site's main priority. But what does this all have to do with 2016? Although there were a lot of rather fleeting careers made that year, 2016 also saw massive growth of popularity in a variety of household names. Although the first episode of Content Cop was released in late 2015, I'd say that iDubbbz's relative fame really spiked the following year. Channels like Pyrocynical also managed to survive the Leafy fallout, and he's still doing very well today. While I think that either one of these creators would be an interesting subject to talk about on their own, the creators who really captivate me from this era are Ethan and Hila Klein, otherwise known as H3H3 Productions. I was, and still kind of am, I have to say, a fan of H3H3. It takes a certain quality of character and content to stand out in the commentary landscape. In their golden age, Ethan and Hila produced videos which had such a distinct and memorable style that I don't think anyone on YouTube will ever truly be able to copy. Now, plenty of comedy YouTubers take inspiration from their videos, some examples I can think of being Eddie Burback and Jarvis Johnson, but I don't think they will ever truly capture what made H3 special. Granted, that doesn't stop me from enjoying both of them as content creators. I really like their videos, but for entirely different reasons than I like Ethan and Hila's. On top of representing a high point for commentary channels as a whole, Ethan and Hila have always been advocates for individual rights on YouTube. The individual rights of who, exactly? Well, H3 didn't seem to discriminate when it came to sticking up for people. They defended the integrity of the average YouTube viewer by singling out bad content just as often as they defended the viewer's right to transparency and privacy, as is evident in cases like the CSGO Lotto scandal, which they covered. Some of their subjects of defense were just random average Joes, too, if anyone remembers the whole Humongous fiasco. While H3 may have been at its core a comedy channel with the purpose of satirizing internet culture above critical commentary, Ethan and Hila were just as active in the sphere of commentary justice, leveling out meaningful criticism and, in some cases, defense for the people who really needed it. As luck may have it, although H3 regularly pitted the nature and status of viewers over the monetary gain of YouTubers, a big portion of the channel's impact has been towards preserving the liberties of the individual content creator. Even just disregarding their videos criticizing YouTube and the brands they promote, Ethan and Hila played a critical role in passing the Fair Use Protection Act, stemming from a lengthy legal battle they endured with Matt Haas concerning the use of his content in one of their videos. Ethan and Hila's contribution did something really huge for the rights of individual content creators, preventing them from being taken advantage of by copyright holders. Additionally, when the adpocalypse really did strike, Ethan and Hila served as a voice for all those affected by the incoming plague of demonetization, defending PewDiePie for his racy jokes and criticizing mainstream coverage of the situation for being biased, inflammatory, and dishonest. Though the internet had always been somewhat estranged from mainstream culture, it was very clear what opponents of big brands and YouTube's PC push were trying to convey: that companies are inherently greedy and malevolent, churning out vapid entertainment for an ignorant, immature audience solely for the purpose of selling a product. In contrast, the individual content creators, much like H3, were transparent beacons of pure, honest, unfiltered, and intellectual videos, whose intention was to connect with their audience and share their passions with the world. You know, the term parasocial relationship gets thrown around a lot to describe the intimate way fans connect with their favorite celebrities, especially online. If you somehow haven't heard of it before, a parasocial interaction occurs when an individual forms a sort of bond with the personalities in the content they watch. By observing somebody's struggles and following their sense of identity from a viewer's standpoint, one may begin to find themselves developing the same sort of emotional tendencies and responses for that televised personality as they would for a human being that they actually personally interact with. This can lead to a distortion of social perception, causing the person on the end of this relationship to blur the lines between fabrication and reality. While this explanation may initially bring to mind images of teenage girls obsessively insisting that their favorite anime character is their boyfriend, parasocial relationships don't always advance to that level. More often than not, the actual interaction is much, much subtler. It can be as simple as being worried about your favorite creator when they don't post, using their art, music, or videos to cope when you're in a rough spot, or waiting until they review a certain movie or show to watch it. Not all parasocial interactions are inherently harmful, and realistically, most people who are connected to pop culture in some form will experience something akin to one. It's a byproduct of consuming entertainment. But what does this have to do with H3? And, perhaps more importantly, what does all of this have to do with Betterhelp?
The two of us haven't really talked much lately. That's, probably my fault. I've just been pretty busy lately, I guess. So, what's going on in your life? Anything new and exciting? My life has been pretty exciting lately. You know that whole YouTube project I've been telling you about? That's actually going really well. I broke 1 million on one of my older videos and I just hit 200k subscribers. It's incredible, honestly. I went from 25K a week ago to 100K 2 days ago, and now it's just all been happening at once. I have more subscribers now than some of the people I've been watching for years. People I look up to have probably seen my videos. I'm not really living luxuriously or anything, but my monthly salary is just about as much as my roommate's, and he works an actual counter job. I'm making a wage off of my videos, and I love making them. You know, ever since I was young, I've always kind of wanted to be famous. Maybe it was just because I never really had any friends. You know, I always thought someday I'll be a famous comedian or something, and then everyone will wish that they could be my friend. I'd have so much support and so many fans that all my problems would just dissolve. But being a celebrity, that's completely different than this. This stuff, it's just real. Sure, you might not be as wealthy or popular, but as a YouTuber, you can be genuine. You can talk to people and they can talk back. You don't have to hide behind some filter. My fans aren't just an album price or a rating for a show or movie. They're real people. And they love me. They love what I do and they accept me. My views have been going up more and more. Who knows? I might have 1 million subscribers one day. I might be able to afford a house one day. I might be able to take a plane and see you one day. I feel happy.
By now, if you're watching this, you probably already know everything there is to know about the Betterhelp controversy. And if you don't, well, sorry, buddy, but I'd have to ask you to find a different video to explain it all for you. There's pretty much nothing I can add to that conversation which hasn't already been said, and there are tons of much better videos out there detailing it pretty well if you want every aspect of the situation laid out for you. I've linked some of those in the description for you guys to check out if you wish. However, just for the sake of clarity, I'll summarize it with this. An online therapy company called Betterhelp promoted sponsorship deals with a lot of YouTubers, including memorable faces like Philip DeFranco, Boogie2988, Shane Dawson in his Jake Paul documentary, and, of course, H3H3 Productions. Now, as if the morality of monetarily benefiting from the subject of mental illness wasn't questionable enough, Betterhelp itself was exposed for incredibly shady business practices and general dishonesty, putting those who promoted it in a very sticky situation. Either they admit that what they did was wrong and expose themselves to be careless and naive with their sponsorships, or they defend their decisions and come off as greedy, conceited pricks. The whole fiasco gets even messier with YouTubers like Philip DeFranco, who admitted to being connected with Betterhelp on a business level, showing how deep this entire issue actually spans. Again, if you're interested to hear more about it, I've left some resources in the description which go in depth with all the weird, wacky stuff surrounding this case. It's really interesting. The extent of this expose was very well timed, coming to light with the Jake Paul docuseries and branching out from there, thrusting it into the spotlight and really shaking stuff up here on YouTube. It was a pretty big deal. However, in spite of its sheer magnitude, the Betterhelp controversy wasn't exactly the first of its kind. It may not even be the most extreme case of this we've seen recently. In 2016, a very similar controversy played out in the YouTube skeptic community, involving an app called Candid. If you aren't already familiar, the skeptic community is a group of political social commentators whose primary uniting philosophy is that they are rational and value logic and honesty first. So, basically, skepticism. As far as I can tell, it first started with debunking creationist videos and spread out to encompass other issues as time went on. The group itself is diverse, and the people involved possess a range of different ideals and beliefs, so I can't reasonably ascribe them to one universal philosophy, but to put this all into perspective, the skeptic community, especially as it evolved, heavily values free speech, knowledge, and truth. However you perceive their methods of executing those concepts is entirely up to you. In 2016, again, which was around the point where the skeptic community seemed to be growing and evolving at its fastest to accommodate for an ever-changing political landscape, a number of their more outspoken members began to promote a social media app called Candid. It was a post-based program where the biggest selling point was that it was completely and totally uncensored. Anybody could say anything they wanted without biased moderation or filtering. It had an intelligent AI which separated posts into categories based around the topics and opinions they concerned, could separate hate speech from legitimate debate, and ensured general anonymity for its users. The inner workings of the app are kind of confusing looking back at it, and it's been taken down due to its parent company being bought out, so it's a bit hard for me to properly describe. What you really need to know first and foremost is that the skeptic community endorsed this app heavily, portraying it as a haven for intellectual honesty and freedom of expression. It was a case where the identities of the creators endorsing the product were so heavily entwined with the item being sold that it blurred the lines between a professional ad and just a friendly recommendation. Eventually, several members in the skeptic community who were skeptical of Candid investigated the app a bit deeper and discovered some troubling things about it. For a service claiming to be founded around anonymity, the app's data mining practices were fairly intrusive, training their AI and feeding it information so that it would be better able to recognize certain patterns of speech and act as a more effective moderation tool. The site was closed down in early 2017 due to its parent company being acquired, indicating that the purpose of the app wasn't actually to serve as a long-standing social media site, but a way to farm data and develop their AI to eventually be sold. Now, these aren't my interpretations, mind you. These are the complaints other people had about the service, and I encourage you to look into it yourself to form your own opinion. Nonetheless, once these concerns were expressed among the community, it caused a bit of a fuss. Many of the creators whose images were threatened retaliated with vigor, wholeheartedly defending the app. The issue of dishonesty became even worse when it was revealed later on that the people attempting to defend Candid were bound by contract, insinuating that those involved were well aware enough of the potential for controversy that they would agree to defend the app and keep it in good standing should people ever doubt its integrity. While the full truth behind Candid and those sponsoring it may never really be known, the discussion surrounding it sheds light on something rather interesting. The foundational principle of the skeptic community is honesty. In a world where few people are ever truthful, there is one person, or people, that you know will be telling you the truth, and that's the skeptics. They'll tell you the truth about how things are, about their emotions, about touchy-feely subjects where they aren't afraid to stick up for the facts. You can't trust the world, but you can trust skeptics. And that's important, because deep down we can't ever truly be completely skeptical. We need some sort of constant in our lives that we don't have to question. We need trust. The Candid controversy wasn't only an issue of YouTubers being dishonest about a product they were sponsoring. Because Candid's service was promoted to align so heavily with the ideals and personal narratives of the skeptics promoting it, the potential of Candid being a scam becomes much more troubling. How can somebody endorse a product which runs so counter to their personal beliefs? If skeptics are all about truth and critical analysis, how couldn't they have realized they were endorsing a product which intended to sabotage their loyal viewers? Or, even more alarming, what if they knew about Candid's true intentions all along? What if they knew that their relationships with their audience was built upon a sense of trust and moral alignment, and they purposefully took advantage of that? What if the personas and beliefs they present in their videos were fake? Nothing more than elaborate marketing strategies designed to peddle products and wider narratives to their impressionable audiences? What if none of the things we know about them are genuine? That's a scary thought. There's no doubt in my mind that the skeptic community is a perfect, if not slightly exaggerated, portrayal of individual creatordom. The community has been around, featuring a lot of the same people since early into YouTube's life, and the general standard of production quality between their videos is rather amateur, at least among the more popular figures. It's very obvious that these people are just average Joes. Even if you don't agree with them, it's easy to trust them. To trust that they're generally good, well-intentioned people who just want to express themselves and connect with the people that enjoy them and watch their videos. They want to be entertaining, and they want to be honest. But with things like the Candid controversy to keep in mind, that idea becomes a bit tainted. What if individual creators aren't honest? What if they use just as much manipulation and just as many sly marketing tactics as big businesses with their corporate celebrities and brands? This leads us back, of course, to Betterhelp. Now, Betterhelp advertised with creators from a variety of different fields. Their scope was much wider than Candid's, and this is because their intended audience was bigger. Rather than targeting a very specific set of people with very specific beliefs for the foremost purpose of research, Betterhelp's marketing was tailored to gain as much popularity and as high of a user base as possible. This is par the course for an online business. Well, any online business that sells a physical product and isn't tied to the serious professional treatment of mental health. In and of itself, the idea of online therapy is a rather strange one. It's like the convenience store version of in-house psychotherapy, because in the end, that's all it really is. A more convenient version of therapy. Or, at least, that's how Betterhelp wanted it to appear. Their methods of advertising the service were equally as modern and inventive, tapping into a relatively new market, taking advantage of the incredibly personal nature of YouTube and YouTubers to distribute what was, in essence, a very personal product. The deal was a win-win. Betterhelp got personal exposure, and the YouTuber in question got some good press for spreading awareness for mental health care and offering essential resources, whatever that means. But should that sort of sponsorship be acceptable? There are two layers to this question. Firstly, one has to consider the legitimacy of advertising on behalf of Betterhelp as an entity. Making your presence known as a clinically certified therapy service is completely fine. The more people who are aware of potential treatment options for their mental conditions, the better. However, Betterhelp is not clinically certified. Chances are, a lot of the therapists they allow to use their service aren't either, thanks due to their relaxed vetting rules. The terms and conditions state quite clearly that Betterhelp isn't an alternative to in-house therapy. If this is to be believed, then what exactly is it? An accessory? The prices they're asking for are pretty steep if Betterhelp is only intended to serve as a tack-on for regular therapy. The advertising they use really doesn't help their case either. In sponsorships, and even on their own site, they push the narrative that they were meant to act as a cheaper substitute to psychotherapy. Either they lied about their intentions, or they only included the disclaimer in their terms and conditions so that they wouldn't be held legally responsible for offering a medically unverified service. Betterhelp took a lot of precautions in their terms and conditions to absolve themselves from any form of legal blame. While this all is damning enough in and of itself, the second layer of Betterhelp's advertising which I'd like to address is the fact that they employed YouTube sponsorships. Now, sponsorship deals are a great thing. If a content creator can find a way to make money off of their videos in a transparent and mutually beneficial way, then more power to them, absolutely. Some people see YouTubers advertising a product in their videos as a sign of them selling out, but I'm always happy to see some of my favorite small creators being supported. However, with that being said, I do believe creators should be held to a certain expectation with the brands they advertise. That much goes for anyone in any profession. But when it comes to sponsoring Betterhelp, it's not only a question of performing extensive background research to ensure that the company you're sponsoring aligns with your morals 100%. The issue more lies with the absolutely careless way YouTubers chose to promote their ads. Companies don't purely sponsor YouTubers out of the good of their hearts, even if, in all likelihood, YouTube ad space would get them more exposure. By sponsoring a YouTuber, the business in question is integrating their product into that creator's content, making themselves a part of the viewer experience. On top of having their brand appear in the video, often multiple videos, many of their sponsorship package deals involve what is essentially a paid testimonial, a segment of the video where the YouTuber talks about how much they personally enjoy the product being sold and thanks the company for being inherently good enough to pay them. Typically, when it comes to something like a box of shaving equipment shipped monthly to your house, or a free trial to an audiobook website, there is nothing wrong with this. The YouTuber's testimonial ensures quality control, can be a source of creative influence, and connects the product to a brand new audience who would benefit from the nature and quality of the service. I mean, what person who spends a lot of time on the internet wouldn't want to know about an application which automatically calculates the best price of a product from an online store? Which one of those people wouldn't like to have a subscription to a service which delivers healthy, high-quality ingredients and recipes to their home? In those cases, the testimonials are in response to a tangible product with tangible results. Dollar Shave Club delivers hygiene materials to you. The returns are convenience and a physical product. Audible lets you listen to audiobooks. The returns are entertainment and a digital product. Incense Zen sends you incense sticks, the return is a physical product. Each one of these services can be measured in a qualitative fashion by means of its use alone. Betterhelp is a lot less clear-cut. Discounting the fact that, as an entity, Betterhelp is not at all responsible for the effectiveness of their therapists, mental health treatment is not something which can or really should be promoted like any old sponsorship deal. One of the worst things somebody who is struggling with mental health can do when it comes to their treatment is to blow an exorbitant amount of their personal finances on a long-term form of therapy when the practice being offered might not even help them. Different people respond differently to certain forms of treatment, and even if BetterHelp is supposedly cheaper, their prices aren't exactly equivalent to pocket change. Keeping this in mind, the presence of paid testimonials to advertise BetterHelp becomes almost unethical. Treating BetterHelp's therapy quality as if it is something which can be universally defined by an individual experience is wrong. Even if this was not the case, the statement, "this is a service I actually use," is still quite manipulative. It's not as simple as citing your own experience with a company like Dollar Shave Club and singing praise for the quality of a product. By claiming to have a personal relationship with a therapy company, the YouTuber in question takes the role of a well-intentioned friend instead of the communicator of a sponsorship. They utilize the unique relationship they possess with their fans to nudge them in the direction of a service. It's like if a friend were to recommend their personal therapist to you. A lot of social media influencers get flack enough for failing to make the distinction between a paid promotion and a regular post clear enough, but when you add the concerns surrounding BetterHelp as a service, these flaws are only amplified. But I really can't place too much blame on the YouTubers. Advertising on the internet is still a relatively new thing, and it will likely take some time until the kinks are worked out. Back in 1993, the Children's Television Act introduced new restrictions on the content of kids' programming. One of its most notable achievements was the way it regulated advertising. This legislation completely banned the airing of ads which were too similar to the actual programs being shown. This means that ads which featured cameos and endorsements from popular cartoon characters were made basically illegal. Due to a child's limited cognitive skill and their inability to distinguish reality from fiction, those whose perception of media was stuffed with unabashed product placement from a young age would be much more susceptible to marketing manipulation. Nostalgia is a powerful tool. To this day, I still feel giddy and excited whenever I see flyers for book sales at my little sister's elementary school and think about all the Japanese erasers I could buy to compensate for years of feeling left out and poor. Ah, the memories of misery. Point here is, due to this product's relevance to my childhood, possessing it now brings me a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, despite the fact that it's practically useless in my current day-to-day life. This same sort of imprinting can occur when you see the Flintstones smoking Winston cigarettes, for example. If a brand is associated with a positive childhood memory, and that memory sticks, it could have lasting repercussions. This same principle applies to children watching videos on YouTube, but perhaps on an even more extreme level. The entire draw of many YouTubers' content is the personality. Rarely are the videos they make intended to communicate some sort of deeper lesson or moral, or string together a narrative. In the case of YouTubers like Jake Paul, whose videos are stuffed to the brim with plugs for merch, there isn't really anything to the media but advertising. Flashy, rewarding, fluff-filled, and meaninglessly glorified commercials. That's all they really are. Should regulations be administered and upholded to prevent the growth of individuals like the Pauls? Or will these preventative measures backfire and inevitably spiral out of control, affecting revenue and sponsorships for the rest of YouTube? After all, even though Jake Paul commits to having a child audience, his content isn't available on the YouTube Kids app. Should YouTube uphold site-wide administration to ensure ethics in advertisement? Should YouTube be expected to judge each individual on a case-by-case basis and level out their executive power unfairly? Or should we protect the freedom and security of small and adult-oriented creators, neglecting the potential damage caused by careless influencers? At least momentarily, there is no easy answer to this question. While the vast majority of the channels which promoted Betterhelp were not kid channels by any stretch of the imagination, manipulation isn't something limited to children. Not even the broad concept of reality distortion is limited to the underdeveloped. This is something clearly demonstrated by the issue of parasocial relationships, as discussed earlier. Granted, this sort of dependence occurs more commonly in teens, but adults are not exempt from it. Horror stories about manipulatable men and women who sink an unhealthy amount of time and money into a content creator they idolize are not at all uncommon. The very notion of superfans and white knights is a direct result of this phenomenon. All of these different forms of unhealthy attachments and relationships are different than they always have been because of the internet. You can admire a musician or an actor or an artist through their work, and maybe even follow a celebrity like one of the Kardashians through their TV shows to learn about their life and behavior, and by all means, the culture of idolization fosters obsession. But the internet is something that's almost always been open source. You aren't just watching somebody through the elusive barrier of a record label or a television studio. You're watching what you know is another person because they're using the same social media platforms you do. You have near constant connectivity with them. It's so much easier to believe that they are your friend, even if they have a production team and half their Instagram posts are sponsored and they've never actually interacted with you of their own will throughout the entire time that you've known them. It's so much easier to see them as a real person, to have sympathy, to actually care. But how much should we?
Sorry if I made you worried. The past couple of days I've been, mostly just stuck in bed. I've been avoiding looking at my phone. It's, I don't know, it's kind of a rough spot for me. I just haven't really been feeling my best. I'm sure you already figured that out, judging by all the times you've tried to call me. But don't worry about me. I'm safe. I'm not in any danger of myself. I promise. These past couple of weeks in general have just been kind of a low point for me, I guess. I really don't know what happened. I was doing great. I was making a lot of money. I was making a lot of new friends. Theoretically, I'm in such a good place right now. I've got a stable job. I've got a good roommate. I actually met someone not too long ago. This is a lot of people's dream job, and I was sailing so high before, but I don't know. I should be happy right now. I should be really happy. But it just feels like something's wrong here. A couple of months ago, my average views stopped going up. It bothered me a little, I have to admit. And then it just kept getting worse. I was uploading videos just like I always did, but my audience wasn't seeing them. Where did I go wrong? It didn't make any sense. paycheck came in, it was lower than before. Could you imagine if that happened to you at your nursing job? You work the same amount of hours and the same amount of days, and you do all the same things, all the right things. But then, for some reason you were never told, you're earning $5 less, and then it goes on and it becomes $10 and $20. If that continues, where will you be in a year? When will all that income, all the stuff you've been working towards, just disappear? And you can't do anything about it because you don't know what's wrong. Nobody does. You're helpless and lost and afraid, and you don't know if you'll be back where you started. Poor, miserable, alone. What would you do in that situation? You know, I really have to kick myself to make a new video now. It's not cool anymore. It's not fun. I was pouring my heart out into them in the beginning, and now all of that enthusiasm I had is just gone. I can't record a take without feeling terrible about it, and terrible about myself, and then I'm putting out fewer videos, and it makes me feel more useless. What happened? Everything was going so well for me. Now I feel washed up, and nobody cares anymore. I just want to do something new. I want to make something that people want to see again. But then there are the people that always chastise me. Every move I make, they're watching me, pretending to be worried about my health and happiness, pretending to care. Every video I make, they're standing at the ready, looking for every little thing they could say to get even a sliver of attention. You look tired. You're not putting in as much effort as you used to. Remember the good old days when you made all those amazing videos? We want more of that kind of content. You're not uploading enough. You're not funny enough. You're not happy enough. You're neutering your content because you don't swear anymore. Oh yeah? Does it bother you so much that your precious obscenities have been covered over because YouTube's stupid algorithm decides not to pay me every time I say the wrong things? And then whenever I make the slightest change and try something new, they freak out again. Why aren't you making your old types of videos? I like those better. I miss the old you. I hate this content. It's so lazy and uninspired. You're only in it for the money. You'd be happier if you were making more of your old videos. Trust me. I know what you're feeling. I know what will make it all better. Us fans are what got you where you are, you know? We know what's best for you. No, you don't. You don't know anything about me. I don't owe you people anything. You know what you are to me? You're a number. You're another tick to my subscriber count. You're another view. You're another fraction of a cent added to my balance. An entitled, bratty little push in the algorithm. There are hundreds of thousands of useless little numbers out there just like you. For every one of you I lose, I gain 2 more. Every condescending, whiny comment you make just gets me more publicity. You want to play dumb with me then? You want to pretend like you care about me? Well, I wish you all the very best of luck. I hope this hits a nerve. I hope you care when I miss my upload schedule. Because, frankly, I don't care about you.
Shane Dawson has been one of the most relevant and quickly growing YouTubers of 2018. Although Dawson already had a sizable following before his sudden boom, gathered from his influential status as a YouTube veteran, the return of his limelight came about as the result of a new style of content he began producing. The trend started with his 3-part TanaCon documentary. Remember that fiasco? Well, that introspective reflection, featuring interviews with Tana and the organizer of the actual event, put Shane on the map for millions of people. The course of the series swayed popular opinion about the mishap, and after the trilogy concluded, his viewers were thirsty for more. His next documentary came in the form of The Secret World of Jeffree Star, which appeared to spark new popular interest in the beauty community, capping off with the Laura Lee drama. Granted, Shane's new trend of videos hasn't been in place for too long, but it is clearly evident that its reception carries weight on par with and possibly rivaling iDubbbz's content cop in the community. The most recent addition to Shane's lineup was, of course, the absolute powerhouse that was inside the mind of Jake Paul, and I think that I've already at least conceptually explained the ramifications of that. Case in point, the style of content Shane is contributing has proven wildly successful. There are several factors we can attribute to this. Obviously, the subject matter is important, and yes, while without the popular names, these case studies wouldn't be nearly as enticing, Dawson's work attracts a demographic much larger than the consistent audiences of the people he covers, which indicates that there is more to be counted for his success. Considering this, another incredibly essential draw to Shane's channel is his personality. In the Jake Paul documentary, he specifically labeled himself an empath, in stark contrast to the informal diagnosis he assigned to Jake. Dawson is definitely a character, and I don't think that much is a controversial statement. He's bubbly, charismatic, generally lighthearted, while maintaining a level of endearing pettiness and an enthusiasm for drama. He's definitely got that witty, relatable teenage girl charm. That's not meant to be taken as an insult, it's just the only way I can think of to describe it. It's easy to look at him and acknowledge how expressive he is and feel some sort of connection to him. This much leads us to the final reason why I believe Shane's docuseries are so successful. The way Shane creates and acts in his content allows for a marriage between the emotional stimuli that we crave when watching YouTube and the guise of informative content. From TanaCon to the hectic family life of the Pauls, Shane's communication with the creators he covers aims to establish an intimate relationship with the subject matter, with the ultimate goal of humanizing his targets. After all, the best way to gain new understanding of somebody, no matter their background, is to analyze their character. I'm all about that. What could possibly be wrong with that? Well, there are a few things. Let's take a step back to talk about the TanaCon documentary. Shane set out with the intention of using his close ties with Tana to answer the questions on everyone's mind. How the hell could a disaster like this happen, and exactly who is responsible? In theory, it's an excellent leverage. But when you introduce the unavoidable fact that Shane and Tana have a friendly relationship with one another, this introduces several unforeseen consequences. One narrative the documentary tries to peddle to us, which I find slightly insulting, is the chosen portrayal of Tana as an ignorant, confused child who simply doesn't know any better. The viewer is given all these scenes of Tana in distress, pleading for forgiveness and allegedly trying to make things right. Now, I believe that virtually anyone has the capacity for positive change and rehabilitation, but this isn't the first time that we have seen her mess up and try to pull a similar stunt. Sobbing, regretful Tana is a far cry from the egotistical Tana we saw bragging about how long people would be waiting in the hot sun to get into her event. I'm not saying that it's impossible for Tana to have been genuine with her apology, but given the fact that she continues to remorselessly involve herself in so many controversies and make so many poor decisions, I don't think it's a stretch to doubt her integrity when she breaks down crying and begs for sympathy. Herein lies the problem with Shane's documentaries. In an effort to humanize the subjects of his studies, Shane has to trust them fully at their word. In the current climate of collaborations and sister shade, it's hard to be and present a truly neutral stance on a situation, since everybody expects you to act a certain way to them, your friends, their friends, putting pressure on you to show a certain level of hospitality which can make taking a stance difficult, if not impossible. We want to believe that all of these people are telling the truth. We want to believe that it was all just a big misunderstanding, but that's not always how the world works. When Shane seemingly excuses Tana from her wrongdoings, and he essentially does the same for Jake Paul, It promotes this mindset that we ought to feel bad for these content creators. In the end, they're just humans like us, making human mistakes, and we should all try to relate to that more. But that just isn't how it always works. And it's that sort of dismissive mentality which encourages us to be more lenient to the repeatedly bad behaviors of these popular YouTubers, to excuse wrongdoings as long as there is a sympathetic root to them. Of course, and this is a totally unrelated example, somebody being abused throughout their childhood deserves patience and understanding, but that by no means excuses that same person from repercussions after inflicting abuse on their own children. You have to have some level of compassion in you if you ever hope to help someone improve, but that doesn't mean that you can't punish them for their mistakes, especially when repeated. Once the human brain realizes it can do something bad with high rewards and no real consequences, it's inclined to repeat that action over and over again until it finally gets caught. Now, I realize that I'm taking a rather cynical and skeptical stance towards this whole situation. Maybe I'm being a bit too unfair or harsh. I mean, is it really that much of a stretch to believe that individuals like Tana and Jake really are just dumb people and making dumb decisions? Is it really that hard to think that, in the strange world we live in, the only merits for success are stupidity and arrogance? Well, no, not really. But for every time Jake Paul jumps on a news van, there's another where he speaks at conventions about how good he really is at marketing to children. For every time Tana sobs and apologizes for her dumb mistakes, there's another where she promotes fake makeup companies selling free products. That's the thing with these people. You think you know them because you spend so much time with them in their videos, but when Shane Dawson gawks and marvels at the Team 10 house playing the role of the audience in true empath fashion, it's easy to forget that he still has a mansion of his own. You know, H3H3 Productions has recently begun emulating their old videos to what seems like universal praise. Granted, it's come about at the tail end of a lot of other less favorable events, but people seem to be taking this as a tiding of good things to come. Am I the only person who isn't feeling too sure about this? I've watched all their new commentary videos, but something just doesn't seem right. It's like the magic is gone, like the charisma is missing. If you look at many other creators, very few of them are still making the exact same style of content as they were in 2016. But, I mean, isn't that a given? iDubbbz has his new series, Leafy doesn't even exist anymore, and it really does feel like everyone has moved on. Except for H3. They're back to making the same sort of commentary videos, trying desperately to recapture some sort of missing spark, but in many cases it's really just not possible. But maybe I'm just projecting my own feelings onto Ethan and Hila. Maybe they're perfectly fine and happy to do what they're doing now, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to know what they are feeling. I just think it's kind of sad what's happened to H3. At this point, they're kind of stuck. After messing up a few times, their audience has them backed into a corner, and the only thing they can really do to assure people that they do care about their fans and that they do care about the well-being of others is to give in to every one of their audience's demands. They've got to make more commentary videos. They've got to keep everybody happy. This may seem like a change of pace. What, from indicating that Tana and Jake Paul don't deserve sympathy to then implying that H3H3's dilemma is an inherently sad one? Yeah, it may sound contradictory, but let me just try to explain. The fact that Ethan and Hila have even come to this crossroads in the first place is an indication that they have lost their ability and standing to be genuine. More and more as time goes on, Ethan and Hila have lost the ability to communicate with their fans. Whether it's in response to a controversy or an explanation of their actions, they've seemingly received backlash at every turn. Is the backlash valid? Well, I definitely don't think it's useless, and depending on your own moral understanding, it's probably completely deserved. But this much reveals something important about the direction of H3H3. Perhaps they have lost the will or desire to be honest and caring with their fans. Perhaps they never intended to grow distant, but their status as an influential figure in the community makes them too vulnerable to condemnation. No matter what the full reason may be, I believe that Ethan and Hila have flung into damage control mode. I can't really blame them for it. I mean, it is their livelihood on the line and their social reputation, but I do believe it is at the expense of something. H3H3 may no longer be about Ethan and Hila. H3H3 is a branding, a content machine, something that presents itself as a reflection to the content creators, but only serves as a facade. When there are so many people out there vilifying you for something, making you feel small and helpless, it's easy to retreat and submit while never truly understanding why. The more and more you apologize without actually meaning it, the harder it becomes to realize your own mistakes and respect the people you are apologizing to. But I could be completely wrong about all of this. I don't know Ethan and Hila personally, and I can't speak for them about what is happening with their channel. Regardless, I have a sneaking suspicion that we will be seeing less and less of a truly honest Ethan and Hila, if what we once knew about them was ever really true in the first place. As the internet and its surrounding culture continues to progress, it very much seems like we're entering a new era of connectivity. With each great leap in technology, the phone, the car, the television, the radio, a new phase of our media has come and gone. Commercialism has evolved drastically alongside the strange and frightening culture of social idolization. We're evolving, exponentially, thoroughly, emotionally. Were we ever really meant to go this far? We developed our social tendencies as a survival mechanism to ensure the progression and preservation of our species. Intelligent beings are also selfish beings, inclined to service only their own needs and desires, so the most able and favorable to the throes of development were those which could collect for the common elevation of human good. Socialites, drawn to the pack, hungry to meet, to mate, to recreate and procreate, to share ideas and feelings, relationships for the good of the species which reward us by making us warm and fuzzy inside. But what happens when relationships cross the boundary of mutual, direct contact? When you can be friends with anyone in the world. When you can share your trivial, private thoughts with an audience of hundreds of thousands. Or when you can live every moment of every day through the eyes of somebody else. When you can get to know every aspect of somebody without ever having spoken to them. It started when we put public figures on display many, many years ago. But now we aren't just watching them. They're on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, appearing on your feeds at the same time as your friends and family, becoming a part of our lives, sometimes replacing them. Now, frankly, all this connectivity has done wonders for the world of information and general well-being, and I really can't sell that short. But, as we all know, too much of anything is a bad thing, and that's the big problem we're facing here. We aren't just on the internet. We're getting addicted to it. We're substituting interaction for feedback, real relationships for idols, living out fake lives for ourselves and the people closest to us. We're addicted to this intensely rewarding illusion of living. Innovation has pushed our capabilities to the extreme. Technology grows infinitely, but it takes hundreds of thousands of years for the biological makeup of the human race at large to experience any form of significant change. Maybe we've bitten off more than we can chew, and now we're paying the price. There's no turning back from this. As much as we'd like to believe, fixing this behavior is not as simple as just going outside. It would take generations of reform and a complete reprogramming of our political, social, and economic realities. We're stuck here, constantly moving forward, and nobody knows how our lifestyles will change within even the next 5 years. Parasocial relationships are just a fact of life now. That's something we really can't change. But regardless of how unflattering the term may seem in connotation, it's not always a bad thing. It's simply a human habit, which can turn unhealthy rather suddenly. It's beyond important to pay attention to the people you watch and how you watch them. It's easy to look at the presence of your favorite YouTubers on social media and assume that what you're getting is real and trustworthy. But in all reality, as much as it seems like we are living in the age of oversharing, the quantity of information given does not equate to quality, and it is incredibly easy to be facetious through a persona. YouTubers capitalize on your relationship with them, and this isn't a bad thing. But it's always important to be aware of what you're being told and to be alert to potential abuse. Know where your information and your opinions are coming from. After all, you've been listening to me for this long. How do you know you can trust me? As far as you know, I'm just a cartoon robot on a screen. What do you really know about me? That's something for you to think about. Phew, that was a long one. I'm sorry I kept you guys waiting for this long. I've been working on this for a super long time, and there are a lot of things I wanted to touch on here. This is a bit different than the stuff I usually do, but I hope you guys found it interesting nonetheless. It was very experimental. I hope you guys liked my voice acting. I feel really nervous posting it, but you deserve the video, and it's I don't know, I just really wanted to try something new with that. There were a lot of things I wanted to generally address, and I hope that the message wasn't lost in translation here. That being said, I hope you guys are having a great holiday season. If you could like this video and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'm a small channel and every bit of support helps, if you have the time, of course. Also, if you're at all interested in supporting me as a creator through other financial means, I've set up a Fiverr page where you can commission me for art and stuff. Right now, the only thing I've got up there is for character design, so if you want me to make you a reference sheet or maybe some video sprites and you want to help support this channel, consider maybe doing that at some point. If you guys want, I can open more for art and maybe writing, I don't know. I'm sorry to beg for money, but I'd like to make more content for you all and also make some money while also giving you guys something personal, so it's not just like you're giving me money every month. I don't know, it's something to think about. Maybe a present for a mutual or something. With that out of the way, I hope you all have a fantastic day. You're like, Christmas. Bye!